Welcome to My Therapist is Out, an open space therapy collective podcast. We are your hub for queer and trans mental health care. Each episode, we talk with one of our open space therapists or LGBTQ community member about mental health and building community. And I am your host, Renae Johnson, they, them, licensed therapist and founder of Open Space Therapy Collective. OSTC was founded on providing excellent queer, trans, and QPOC-informed care for adults, teens, partners, and families. Today, we are talking with OSTC Associate Therapist Sierra Gruca. Sierra specializes in working with couples and partners in non-monogamous relationships, as well as adults experiencing overwhelm, loss, and guilt.
As we dive into today's topic, please keep in mind that this is a mental health podcast. We will talk about sensitive and difficult issues that are not appropriate for all audiences. Please take care while listening.
Hey, y'all. This is an exciting day for us. This is the first podcast with one of our OSTC therapists, Sierra Gruca. We really get into friendship and the roles that people take on in friendships, and specifically what Sierra coins as the mom role, the role that you're the one to make all of the plans and bring all of the supplies, and people rely on you for the scheduling and to have the information. And if this sounds familiar, you should listen to this episode. And it's something that Sierra really connects with and has for a long time. Zaza just walked out of the room, not the mom friend. And it's something that I've found myself throughout my life jumping in and out of that role. So we talk a little bit about our own experience. We talk about ways to be in your love language without getting locked into a role, how to have those conversations with your friends, if they're appropriate to have those conversations with your friends, and how to change some of those dynamics that aren't feeling good while keeping the friendships that you want to keep. Zaza is back and creeping out. So please dive into the episode with me. Listen. If you like it, write a review. Any questions that you have or anything that stands out to you or want us to follow up on, you can find us on our website, openspacetherapycollective.com, and of course on social media, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, you name it, at Open Space Therapy Collective. And let's dive in. Okay. Welcome back to My Therapist is Out, an Open Space Therapy Collective podcast. I am so excited because we have our first episode with our therapist, Sierra Gruca. Welcome.
Woo! Hi, everybody. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm so excited for our conversation today.
Me too.
And love that you picked this topic. It hits a little close to home for me. Mm-hmm. And I'm so curious. So we're going to be talking about what it's like to be the mom friend and how to stop being the mom friend, and what it's doing to serve or disserve you.
Right.
To start us off, why did you want to talk about this topic in particular?
I am the mom friend. That's why. And in my experience, I would just say I'm the mom of the group. It wasn't even mom friend. So it felt a little more separate within the roles of the group, but it hits close to home because that's my role. That's what I tend to be in friend groups, and I resonate with it a lot and all the things that come with it, and I think it's interesting to understand why.
Yeah, it's fascinating. How did you... Well, let's define it first so people know what we're talking about.
Okay. Like
being the mom friend or the parent of the group or the dad friend or...
The parent friend.
The parent friend, the responsible one.
Yeah.
What does that mean? What does that role look like?
Mm-hmm. I think it is the one, like you said, the responsible one of the group. The one making sure that everybody's okay, everybody is safe. Maybe if you are planning something, being the one to organize, being the one to kind of have this mental checklist and make sure, okay, we got this, we got that, everyone's good. It really just is a different way of relating to friends in a way that is a little more parental role-ish, I feel. then we're on the same page. We're all friends. We're all responsible. It's kind of like taking the load for everybody.
Yeah, that real, and it's tricky, right? Because a lot of us, like, caretaking or acts of service is a big love language.
That's my love language. Acts of service.
Same.
Check.
Yeah. Terrifyingly strong
Yes.
love language. And it gets confusing in here when it's love language and then when it starts to transition into, like, you are the mom friend of the group.
Totally.
What's the difference between, like, love language and getting into this mom role? Or, well, I think we'll talk about role lock in a little bit, but, like, getting locked into, you are the mom friend of the group. We are going to Sierra all the time for blank, or, oh, I don't have to worry about it. Sierra will get it.
Right. I think acts of service as a love language and expressing that form of love to friends is something that you do from a genuine place of the kindness of your heart. It's not expected. It's not something that people depend on you for. And I think that's what differentiates that in a big way from being the mom friend of the group. Because I think once you start to identify with, or people identify you as the mom friend of the group, then it becomes dependent. And sometimes your needs can be pushed to the side and others can be placed above as priority. And I think that is a big difference between mom friend of the group and acts of service. Because acts of service, I feel, it's just a way you show love. That's the way you give love. And it's not necessarily a role, but an expression.
Yeah. The dependency piece is, like, really important. And it's sneaky, right? Because it's not just like all of a sudden one of your friends is like, can you do all these things for me?
Right. It's a gradual build.
When did you start to notice for yourself that, oh shit, I think I might be the mom friend of the group?
College.
Okay.
Yep.
That's young.
When I was, oh yeah. Young. When I moved away from home, went to college, I was raised in a way to always be aware, always be responsible, and that was for my own safety. But in the group of people that I was with, they were great. And also that safety component of, I need to be on my toes. I need to make sure everyone's safe. We need to get from point A to point B, like, no hiccups. That's when I was then identified as the mom friend of the group and just the caretaker for everybody.
Yeah. And I think especially that young and, like, being in your 20s,
Younger.
Early 20s,
Younger.
late teens, it's a lot of how we're raised gets transferred over. And a lot of parents really instill, like, hey, here's some skills, life skills you need to know how to do.
Yep.
And other parents don't value that as much. And when, you're in your late teens, early 20s, your frontal lobe isn't even developed yet. So this is a skill that you have been taught that other people may not even be able to do.
Or I would add that they've been taught, and then once being removed from their home situation, free reign, and then wanting to get out of that because it's something that maybe felt so rigid, maybe is the word.
Yeah, great point. Yeah, when I was in my younger years, I was just like, I don't know, maybe I'll do things, maybe I won't. Fuck it. Like, things were way too structured.
I was
way
scared
too
shitless.
rigid. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we're talking about, this is a love language, this is a skill set, and then you're starting to notice, oh, my friends are relying on me or kind of go to me for this thing. Like, what's wrong with that?
I don't think anything's inherently wrong with it. I think it's the lack of boundaries and taking care of everybody else before yourself is where it gets a blurred line. Because at the end of the day, you got to make sure that you're good and you're taken care of, and you're so cliche, so cheesy, but the love that you're giving other people, you got to give to yourself. Mm-hmm. And I think that still holds true for being the mom friend of the group, where if everybody else is being taken care of and there's nobody else taking care of you, then like your tank could be empty, or you could have no more energy or mental capacity to then turn that around and take care of yourself. And then that can kind of cycle into whatever it cycles into. Yeah, I think that just the lack of boundaries maybe as well.
Yeah. And those are, I mean, you're hitting on some really important things here. Is it's really easy to be in this love language place and not realize that you're running on empty, or that nobody else is giving back until it's kind of too late.
Yeah, that piece, the reciprocation of it also is something that I think is very telling, where you're giving all your energy or most of your energy, and then perhaps you get to a point and realize like, wait, what's being returned? And then that's a sad realization, because you're amongst a group of friends, and you know, it's kind of just been a dynamic that has gradually taken place over the course of however long the friendship is.
Are those friends at that point? When this dynamic has gone on for a while and you realize, oh my God, I've been really giving, but this doesn't feel like a give and a take, and like not a tit for tat kind of thing, but just like the emotional care that goes into any relationship.
I think before deciding yes or no, there should be a conversation about it, because there might not be awareness around the fact that that's the dynamic. And if it's been a gradual thing and you've kind of found that you've arrived at a place in this relationship, this friendship, where it is feeling one-sided, because that maybe has been how it has been for however long, it might be something that's just subconsciously happening. So I think, great question, are they friends at that point? I think I would have a conversation first before making that decision, because it might just be something that's happening that everyone's like, whoop, over the head.
Yeah, and I would guess most of the time it is. And all relationships are 50-50, so you are doing as much to extend yourself in this way, and as much as they are doing to just keep letting yourself extend it. And a lot of this is subconscious. Like people often don't get themselves to this place on either end, being like, you know what I'm gonna do?
Right.
I'm gonna overgive to this relationship and burn myself out.
Exactly.
And so if it is a friendship, then that's just like you're saying, the perfect time to have a conversation. Be like, oh, so I've been doing some reflecting on myself, and I'm noticing a pattern in my friendships.
Yes.
And I think it's happening here.
Yes. And I think that's a great segue to then start to talk about boundaries and how things can change and what things are being noticed, and see what their response might be, and then kind of go based off of that and decide, is this friendship still serving me or not? And either way is totally fine.
What would boundaries look like here?
Boundaries would, taking a deep breath because my brain's fogging.
Let me ask it in a different way. If you're at a point where you're doing some self-reflection and you're feeling burnt out and you're feeling like you don't really have anybody that you can lean on, that your friend groups are there if you're setting up the party, or there if they need somebody to lean on, but you don't necessarily feel like you can do that. What internal things, boundaries for yourself, might you need to start looking at or shifting to start changing these dynamics?
I think internally recognizing not if, but when you need a break, and communicating that to them, and saying, you know what, I can't, if there's something planned, you know what, I can't, like, I'm at capacity. I don't have energy to give into whatever the thing is. Resting. Or saying, you know, I can contribute this much. Like, if you're just starting out with the boundary thing in friendships, it can feel like a drastic pendulum shift. If you're like all the way over here, no boundaries, and then you try to do all the boundaries, that can feel really major. So maybe the way to some sort of middle ground is, you know, I can contribute this much. Somebody else is going to have to take care of this or be in charge of this, or, you know, whatever the thing is. I think boundaries too sometimes can get translated as a way to, I feel like they're misconstrued. It's can sometimes be interpreted as telling somebody that they can't do this, but it's not actually about control. It's about recognizing what you what your parameters are and letting somebody know so that they then are aware and what you're capable of is like communicated.
Yeah, there's a meme going around at the moment that's when somebody's setting boundaries or saying that what they can and can't do, it's not pushing you away, it's an offer to stay in their life.
Yes.
And I think that's really important, because a lot of people, like you're saying, will misconstrue it, and it'll come at or into the conversation like conflict. And it's really an offering, it's really an invitation. And it's important for us to recognize that if we're the one instigating this conversation or instigating change, that the people that we're in friendship and relationship with haven't done that emotional exploration to realize that there might need to be change. And so inviting them into that process is going to be a really important mindset.
Yes. And also I think it introduces a different layer of respect for the people involved.
You mentioned feeling burnt out when you're around friends or needing to take breaks. What are some other signs that you might be the mom friend? What are some other things that you can look at if you're like, oh, I think this might be me?
I think this might be me. Like a thing that a position you're placing yourself in. Always volunteering to do things. If you're a friend group that travels together, like putting packing lists together and like make sure you got this, you got that. I think also maybe it's projection and just me, but the amount of checking in with friends when certain things are going on, where, right, like that's great. Friends do that very commonly, but if it's so much where your energy feels depleted and you're giving more energy and mental space and emotional capacity to them and making sure that they're good, I think that's another sign. Like earlier you mentioned over giving, spreading yourself thin. That's all my brain can think of right now.
Yeah. You know, as you say that, it makes me think about times where I've really leaned into this role, and there's typically something that I'm avoiding for myself, and being like taking that breath and be like, okay, what do I need? And then being like, oh shit, there's too much there, and okay, I'm gonna go focus on this friend needs this thing, that friend's got a new job, this friend's
big, that's snapped to that one. Yep, that sometimes, most oftentimes tends to be the case. There's something that subconsciously or maybe consciously you're avoiding. And I think too, like recognizing if it's being in that role is something that, like we talked about earlier, more aligns with an acts of service type of love giving, or if you recognize it's almost like a sense of control. I think that's also a key point where it's the thought and the feeling of like, I have to be in this role, I have to do this thing, and not trusting that anybody else is capable of doing it. So then it becomes a control factor, which is kind of manipulative also. So yeah.
Which is really interesting. If you are doing these things because you don't trust your friends that they will do them.
Right.
Is that a them thing or is that a you thing?
Or both and situation. Could be a little bit of both. Yeah, that's a great question to reflect on.
Yeah. It also makes me wonder if that's the case, if it's like, well, I can't trust so-and-so to do this thing. Is there something that happened that made you think that between the two of you that you haven't talked about yet?
Right.
Because friendships, especially long-term friendships, there's going to be stuff that comes up that annoys you or goes wrong or hurts each other's feelings. And are you being open and honest with your friend enough about those things when they come up?
Right. Yeah. That's a tough spot to be in. And bringing it up is very uncomfortable and important. And you saying that also makes me think of a secondary question that you could reflect on, of if there's not something that has explicitly happened, like what about this person maybe reflects qualities from someone that maybe growing up you learned to not trust because they weren't dependable. And so then you know, put yourself in that role of caretaker and being in a mom role, parent role, whatever have you.
Yeah. There's definitely been points in my life where I've realized all of my, not all, but like a big chunk of my friend group that I'm spending time with at that point all have very similar characteristics. And so whatever I'm dealing with can fit right into there and I can avoid all of this stuff because they need X, Y, Z.
Right.
Which is a comment on me and not a comment on them.
Yeah.
How, when we talk about these dynamics and boundaries and bigger conversations and asks and give and take, a lot of these conversations tend to be about intimate partners, or maybe some family dynamics. What's the difference there between an intimate partner dynamic and a friendship dynamic? Like, why is this okay for friends and why does this come into friendship?
Honestly, I don't think there is a difference. I think like you said, boundaries can be in intimate relationships, romantic relationships, family relationships, but friendships as well, because any sort of relationship you're in, things need to be communicated. People aren't mind readers, so communicating boundaries is a way to recognize, like I said earlier, what your parameters are, have that be explicitly communicated. As you mentioned, like inviting people to stay and respect the boundaries. And within friendships, I think it helps to create a deeper form of connection, and the dynamic just shifts. There's one friend that I have where we're kind of learning boundaries together in communicating it, and it's different in a good way. And it's very it creates like an environment of transparency within the relationship where things are very clearly laid out, you respect them, and because things have been communicated, you say okay, and you don't really ask questions, and you respect their decision and what their parameters are. I don't think there is a difference. I think relationships in all forms are intimate. Intimacy aside, but I think they're all similar in certain ways.
Yeah. There's a piece in here too that is important to recognize what the friendship is and the level of friendship that it is. Something that I know that I can be guilty of is reading more closeness into a friendship that's actually there. And so then I will give as much to a casual friend as I would to a close friend because I haven't clicked in yet. Like, oh, this is a more casual friend.
Yes. That's good differentiation.
Can you talk a little bit about how that might look differently? Because the boundaries that you need to have for yourself in these different types of friendships are really important, and something that I think is relevant to what we're talking about.
Yeah, when you mention casual friends, it makes me think of social friends. I don't know if that's...
Yeah, same.
Same. I think there is a different approach to friendship when they're more casual, when they are more social. There's certainly a different level of connection and understanding and knowing of each other. And I think in those types of friendships, I mean, I don't even know if there are boundaries in those types of friendships in terms of things that need to be communicated, if they're just social, if they're casual.
It is important. And sometimes there doesn't need to be, right? Like if it's just like, oh, it's a friend of a friend that I see all the time when we go to this show or this type of stuff.
Right.
Like there's not a give and a take there. So whatever. If it's somebody like that comes over a lot with a group, but then doesn't participate in contributing to whatever the party is or whatever, being able to be like, oh, hey, we're throwing this party. Please make sure to bring whatever you want to drink, and like labeling what the expectation is for the group.
Yes.
Can keep it out of any kind of resentment space without it being a big deal.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I think too, keeping it like friends of close friends of yours, recognizing if you're overextending because you want your friend to feel comfortable with the like triad dynamic and to kind of make a comfortable, peaceful situation happen, or recognizing like I'm wanting to provide to this person because I can see a friendship growing, like, but then I feel like that kind of goes back into acts of service, not necessarily like becoming the mom friend of the group if it's someone that you're just starting to meet and get to know.
Right. And if it is somebody who you're like, oh, I think this has the potential to be a closer friend, that's a great opportunity while you're in this space of kind of reflecting and setting new boundaries to have a new friendship from scratch where you're not in that role yet.
Yes. Great practice. Not that you're going to be with that friend to just practice, but it's great practice.
Yeah. Go make friends just to practice. And then once you got it down, ditch them.
Right. Yeah.
One thing I do want to ask your opinion on is, okay, you're recognizing, all right, this is my thing. I'm avoiding this feeling. I'm giving too much. I've had conversations with people. Some went well, some didn't. Few steps down the road. And then you've got that friend who means well, but just cannot get their shit together to save their life. And the only way to be in a close friendship with them is to, let me rephrase that. The only way that you feel like you can be in relationship with them is to do some of that momming. What do you do with that friend who can't get their shit together?
Back off.
Say more.
It will come from a place of love. If you have a friend who cannot get their shit together and you continue to be in that mom role, that will enable them to continue to not get their shit together, which helps nobody. Doesn't help you, doesn't help the friend. And if you are really wanting what's best for them and wanting to see them grow and flourish, backing off a little bit and implementing boundaries and letting them figure it out, as hard as that may be, as long as it might take, it will only be of benefit to both people involved. Because then the dynamic's not going to change.
Yeah. It's in doing this examination and doing these changes, you're saying like, I'm not being fulfilled. I'm not being felt taken care of. This doesn't feel balanced. Yeah. Which is tough. This is tough work. Like this is
work.
Really intense.
Does not happen overnight.
No.
Or since college. Or over a decade.
Yeah. Or you'll
be patient, people.
Or you'll find like, oh, I got out of this pattern and oh shit, now I'm back.
Yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think being aware and having that, just being very cognizant of like when you're noticing it coming up or coming up more strongly with certain people, just reflecting on it and trying to identify like why, what about the dynamic, what about the person, what about me that is kind of getting into this role again in this friendship. I think that is step one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you don't want to be in a place when you're having these conversations where you're projecting stuff onto your friend that is really your responsibility. Mm-hmm. And with any of our relationships, that's a very easy trap to get stuck into. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much. This was
thank you.
Really rich, and I have some more reflection to do on myself.
Oh, me too.
Before we end, something that we say is important, I think is really important, is therapy is super useful, but it's only one piece of the puzzle, and community and healthy, wonderful friendships are another piece. Mm-hmm. What's an example for you in the past couple weeks of a fun moment of connection with your queer community?
Ooh. Kind of goes along with the friendships, but dancing with other queer folks and connecting through movement in that way, I think it has been a great addition to my life, can be a great addition to everybody's life in terms of having fun, being playful, adding another piece of the puzzle to your life and your self-care. I don't really like that word. Your personhood. Yeah. Yeah, humanness. I'd highly recommend it. It's a lot of fun. It's very playful. It's just express yourself. It's a different way to express yourself.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That play is so important.
So important.
Cool. Well, thank you again.
Thank you.
We will see you all back in a couple weeks. Please let us know if you are the mom friend, if you have any questions, if you're noticing any patterns. You can find us on all of the social medias at Open Space Therapy Collective. DM us, leave a comment. Sierra's got some great videos up there about relationships and dynamics and some suggestions on how to handle some of this. And we will see you again. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us. If you're in California and looking for a therapist, visit our website at openspacetherapycollective.com and book a free intro call with one of our therapists. If you're enjoying My Therapist Is Out, please rate, review, and follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. My Therapist Is Out is an Open Space Therapy Collective podcast. Our therapists are Renae Johnson, Kristen Crow, Debbie White, Jenny Nigro, Tara Friedman, Sierra Gruca, and Ernesto Martinez. Our podcast editing is done by Smash and Grab Studio and research and writing done by Matt Wade. We'd love to hear from you about today's topic, so email us at info@openspacetherapycollective.com. You can find us on TikTok and Instagram at Open Space Therapy Collective. Thanks for listening.